Ever wonder what happens when a producer has the perfect combination of creativity and skill? Find out when we dive into the world of Ravenscoon. From his mind-bending drops to genre-defying soundscapes, we'll unravel the secrets behind his groundbreaking tracks and how he is redefining electronic music. Hit that subscribe button and get ready for a deep dive into the creative genius of Ravenscoon. Paul Conversano, known to the EDM scene as Ravenscoon, grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, surrounded by creativity in his family. They are artists, musicians, directors, and so many more who inspired Paul from a young age. Even before becoming the producer that he is today, he spent much of his life going to concerts and shows. As he got out into the adult world, he realized his passions didn't lie in corporate America, and he began his journey into music production. What started as a supporting role in Peekaboo's Black Hole tour has grown into his own headlining tour and curated events across the US. He has released 83 tracks on SoundCloud, a 4-part album, and has amassed over 2.1 million streams on Spotify. He even has a dedicated online community of fans called the Raven's Nest, which has almost 10,000 members. We sat down with Paul to hear him tell the Ravenscoon story and get some exclusive information about his upcoming album and a brand new tour. Paul's skills as a producer are far beyond what you might expect from someone that's only been making music since 2018. He has spent this time growing and perfecting his skill, and in that short time has produced some of the most notable tracks in the genre, including a 4-part concept album that spans 18 tracks. This impressive body of work stems from his roots in Atlanta, Georgia, where creativity runs in the family and starts early.
So I've been into music like my whole life. When I was a kid, like as young as 3, I was at my parents' friend's wedding, and it's one of my earliest memories of me running to the DJ booth and requesting songs. So I've always been, really into music. My parents and people in my family have been artistic. So there's people in my family that do stained glass and play piano, and, draw and act and direct movies. So it's a lot of artists in my family.
His parents supported his interest in music at an early age and encouraged him to experience live music whenever possible.
Growing up, my parents took me to any concert pretty much that I wanted to go to. I remember going to like James Taylor, which is like soft rock, Green Day's American Idiot tour. And then I got really into electronic music. And my first show, I think, was Infected Mushroom and Disco Biscuits. So like went into the psytrance realm, which is a little bit less mainstream, which shows, I've always had kind of an eclectic taste.
Because of Atlanta's location, Paul had access to a wide variety of genres and musical experiences.
I think it had a strong influence on me. Atlanta's always been like a big music city, especially for the southeast of the US. It's like a must-stop city for pretty much every national tour. If you're, going to do a stop on the East Coast, you're going to definitely stop in Atlanta. I listened to a lot of rap and hip hop music. I grew up listening to like Waka Flocka and like Young Jeezy and Gucci Mane, and like had subs in my car and would be like bumping Gucci in high school. So that gave me, that like rap and hip hop influence. It also had a great electronic scene. So I remember seeing like Excision on like the Executioner tour in 2011. I remember seeing RL Grime in like a 600 cap venue. There's been a ton of music festivals too that have came and gone. Atlanta used to have Counterpoint Music Festival. They had Tomorrow World, which was like Tomorrowland's counterpart in the US. So there's just always so much music, rap and hip hop mixed with all of these different eclectic electronic acts really like help cement that for me.
Paul credits his fan-first mentality and the drain that he felt from the corporate world as a defining moment in his path to becoming the producer that he is today.
I've always been like a fan first. So like I was a huge fan and participant before I ever decided to do music. I had like a corporate job that was just like draining me. It wasn't something that I, could see myself doing forever. And I felt like I was like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, between like who I was at home and who I was in the office. Around that time, I started making like fan mixes and mashups and stuff and just putting it on SoundCloud. And I had a couple friends that suggested that I start trying to produce music myself and start playing shows.
Like most producers, his first shows were small, but that wasn't the case for very long.
I just started playing like house parties and like get-togethers, and then it kind of just went from there till, all of a sudden I was like, I could maybe do this full time, and just kind of took a leap of faith 2 years ago, and haven't looked back.
So, what did Paul's life look like as the Ravenscoon project left the ground?
For job, it was like pretty on call all the time. It was like an advertising job. So I was like used to being access of all hours. They expected you to work on the weekends. Like they can't say that, but it was all the time kind of job. When I started out, like my first manager was my wife. And I remember she was just like cold reaching out to venues, being like, book him. And I remember some guy was like, I'll book him if you go on a date with me. So like that's the kind of shit I was dealing with then. I played, in the woods to like 10 people. So it's been a cool journey. Like I've definitely not skipped a lot of steps. I've done like the nobody to where I'm at now.
Having a team behind him was an important key to Paul's success. Who doesn't get by with a little help from their friends?
Got an offer to do 15 stops on Peekaboo's Black Hole Tour. And I said yes, obviously. And I mean, shout out to Matt for giving me that opportunity. And, I was doing that plus going to like work 9 to 5. So sometimes I would leave like Friday from work, go straight to the airport, fly out, play shows all week, and come back and then do like my job all week. And by the end of that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I actually got like an offer for an agency and new manager. I felt like even though I wasn't, making a ton of money from music, that I felt like, with the right team that I could do it full time. So I ended up putting in my 2 weeks 2 years ago, January 4th, 2022. It hasn't been that long that I've been doing this like full time at least. Yeah, definitely having a good team and people believing in you is really important.
In his early life, Paul was inspired by hip hop and the many shows that came through Atlanta. He also finds inspiration in his fellow EDM producers.
It's a 2009 to 2012 style of dubstep, and that style is actually kind of coming back right now. The Ruskos, the Minnesotas, all of those acts from that era, I think inspire me the most.
But he also finds inspiration in more unique ways.
And then I like take little things from here and there, like, something from my childhood. I'm really into like movies as well. So like movie scores or like clips from movies, probably more so in my live sets. Like there will be a clip from Blade Runner or like, something from Interstellar. Movies are such like a powerful tool because it's music, it's visuals, and it's, a confluence of, like writing and emotion and just like so many different art forms. It's kind of like this cool little collage of like all the different experiences you've had.
Like everyone, Paul started small and improved his craft over time. He describes how his sound has evolved into the brand of music that we hear today.
Just my like production has gotten so much better. I know two different types of producers produced for like 5 to 10 years before they ever like started a project and released anything. So by the time they came out of the gates, they're like fucking awesome. And then I was the other kind where I just started releasing shit as soon as I could make it. I've released stuff that objectively is not good to me anymore. It was like a lot of samples or like just wasn't at the same level that I'm at now. But I think it's cool because people can go back and like watch the progress. And it's kind of like, a story. Now I'm at the point that I'm like doing what I wanted to do back then, but didn't know how to. It's just like technical skills, knowledge, growth. More influences from other artists too. Like the more that I've like listened to people, I'll be like, oh, that's really cool. It's like a constant evolution, I think, as a producer. Every time I think I know something and I'm like, okay, that's good, I just unlearn it. And there's always something new and like new techniques that are coming out.
Paul recognizes talent in his fellow producers and learns from the things that they do well.
Coming out, there's, a lot of people that are really technically skilled. There's like the Mr. Bills and the L Gates and the Subtronicses and guys that are, really pushing the production envelope, EPROM and G Jones types. So it's cool, to be in that realm with some of these other people.
Such massive growth in a short amount of time, though, can take a toll not only on the body, but the mind. Paul has always been very open about his bipolar disorder and his battles with addiction. We share this story in an effort to raise awareness on mental illness and the impact that it has on everybody. If you or someone you know needs support, visit www.nami.org.
When I started doing music, I hadn't got the bipolar diagnosis yet, and I was not sober. So I would get so nervous before I'd play, even if it was like a house party with 15 people in it. I like throw up before, or I would drink 10 or 15 drinks, which now just the idea of that much alcohol is like crazy to me. I'm calm and stuff, but then I'd be like fucked up when I'm DJing. And just not fully present. And I think it was also distracting my creativity. As soon as I decided to get sober and I ended up getting, therapy and medication for bipolar, I feel like I'm finally getting to the point where I feel like more myself again. I definitely feel like my creativity has blossomed a lot. At first, when I was doing the music full time, I was like, this is amazing. It's my passion. And I haven't lost the passion for this at all, because I don't think I could do this without the passion. But a little bit of the rose-colored glasses have come off, once you start doing 40 city tours and you start dealing with industry politics and just like people on the internet being like, you suck, bro, for no reason. Like, there's tons of stuff that, especially as a creative person and a person with mental illness that takes things really personally, it's hard. And so like, even though the music like job has gotten harder, I still do find myself passionate, and I don't think that I could do that if I was, still struggling as much as I was with bipolar or drinking. Also, I mean, dude, if you do 40 cities and like 17 weekends in a row or whatever, you can't be getting like blacked out every single show. You're gonna miss your flights. You're gonna either gain a ton of weight or be like a skeleton, and your mental health is gonna be in the toilet. It's just not sustainable. And I want to do this for a long time. Like, I don't want to just like do this for a little bit. I want to like keep doing this for my life. And I think in order to do that, you kind of got to really take care of your mind and body and soul.
Identifying that you may need help is an important first step, but staying healthy is another thing entirely. Paul shares some of his tips for maintaining this balance.
Having a supportive partner or friend, my wife has always been there for me. My managers are really great. If you're having a bad night, call somebody and talk to them. Eating healthy, getting enough sleep. Like, you don't have to hang out every night till 5 in the morning. There's a lot of pressure for those types of things, but sleep is crazy important. I don't really do afters anymore, but if I do it, it's like an occasion and it's really fun.
Yeah.
But it's just not like all the time.
Even with all these practices in place, being so visible to fans on social media can have a negative impact on an artist's mental health.
As an artist, I'm very involved I run all my socials. I'm the one that's answering everybody. I try to take time to respond to like every single person, which can be a lot. It's overwhelming sometimes. I think for the negative comments, a lot of the times I've learned to just been like, whatever, dude, and just move on. But sometimes people say stuff that hurt my feelings, or it ruins my day. But you just gotta try to get out of that. I think having other artist friends is really helpful, because everyone that's like an artist here or producer or DJ has experienced people saying nasty stuff for no reason. And sometimes you just gotta like laugh at it with each other and be like, hey, bro, like, it doesn't matter. Like, don't listen to that. I try to take the time to respond to stuff like that when I do, in like a kind and understanding and fair way. And if somebody's going to respond to me being nice to them back as a dickhead, it just makes them look bad. If you don't like something, just like move on. I see shit that I don't like all the time. I either mute them, block them, or I just like keep scrolling.
Luckily, though, for every negative comment or interaction, Paul has so many others that are there to support him. He returns the favor in his Facebook community, the Ravenscoon.
I think the internet's a weird place, especially like as I've grown up, I've seen it change a lot. There's less like congregation points for people. there used to be so many forums and this and that, and there's been a consolidation of websites, especially in the social media era. One of the best parts of Facebook, which I don't know if there's a lot of those, is the groups option. It's like one of the only places where you can have a bunch of people that share similar interest, that it's easy to access. They can share media, they can share videos, links, photos. You can do polls, and it just gives fans that like my music and want to connect on a deeper level, because I'm in there. Like I'll chat with people, I'll respond to comments. Like it's a closer access to the artist. Sometimes I'll share clips from stuff that I'm working on. It's a place to get people excited and connect. The moderators and everybody that I work with to run that group do a really good job of like helping people find friends. There's like threads on where do you live, and people have like linked up and gone to shows together, or like become homies or shared hotel rooms. So it's just like this little place where you can start growing a big community. I do the weekly wins because, growing up, like you don't always have people that are like, hey, like brag for a second. Sometimes people are like, hey, I got out of bed today. And like, that's a win for some people. And other times it's like, oh, I got married. And it's like, oh, that's a win too. And same with the shows. Like, I don't care if you post other people's shows in my group. Like, maybe these people will like, oh, hey, you live in Rochester and I'm going to that Schlump show. Like, you want to go together and hopefully create some connections that way.
The EDM scene fosters collaboration better than any other genre out there, and Ravenscoon's work is a perfect example. He talks about the collaboration process and why he's such a fan.
It's imperative to collaborate with people. I think I've learned the most as a producer outside of maybe some one-on-ones from mentors, by collaborating with people. I've mostly collabed with people like my own size, or smaller than me, which has been really cool because I always feel like a lot of the best sounds come from like the underground. I just work really well working with other people. Some producers are more solitary, or they're like a lot more like locked in. This is what I want and this is what we're gonna do, and I'm not gonna budge. But for the most part, yeah, like electronic music is really good at collabing. I would even like to see more collaboration and like more teams working on stuff. It would be really cool to see. There's just this inherent beauty in creating something with somebody. I might not necessarily see a certain way to get from point A to point B in a composition, that somebody else can come in and be like, oh, like, let's do this. And then that like back and forth thinking can end up creating something really, really fucking special that you might have probably wouldn't do on your own.
Fans of Ravenscoon can expect a new album and a tour coming up this year. Paul tells us all the details.
The album is going to be called Glass Orchid. And so I'm going to do a tour around that. There's going to be like part one tour that's going to be this fall, just a handful of dates, headlines. And then there's also going to be part two of the tour that's in January to March of next year and some in other cities. It's not going to be as big as the last tour, like the 40 stops, but I'm trying to get like different places that people could either travel to or that are, less stopped at by artists like me. And Glass Orchid is kind of like the fragility of like beauty and love, and how like, it could crumble any moment, but it's also just this magical, beautiful thing, like a delicate flower. I'm excited for that.
Speaking of upcoming shows, you can catch Paul at Bass Canyon, North Coast, Cascade Equinox, and Wakan. We would like to thank Cascade Equinox for making this video possible. With Cascade Equinox Festival just a few weeks away, you can't blame us for asking for some info for what we can expect from that set.
I'm playing on one of the experimental bass nights. The artists that I'm around kind of in that same genre. So I have like different blocks that I play in different sets. So it's probably gonna, hit on some of the weird stuff, some of the experimental stuff, also some of the like the melodic wave stuff that I like playing. So there will be like slow, like cool, vibey, sexy moments to it too. I'm really looking forward to that. I feel like the Oregon, Northern California, Washington festivals just have this like really cool vibe to them. And I really like the people out there. And I think it's like a Wakan festival crowd where people will appreciate some of the less mainstream stuff. So
Speaking of Wakan, Paul has said before that he feels very comfortable experimenting with his live performances there. He's on the Wakan label, but we suspected there was something else that made the mountain so special.
Liquid Stranger himself is really selfless in the fact that he promotes tons of artists. He's helped a lot of artists like come up over the years by giving them, the platform to play music in front of bigger crowds. The festival itself has like a really nice curation on artists. It's like the cream of the crop, in my opinion, of like experimental bass music. Like this year's lineup is like, in just to me, it's insane. It's also not like overdone, the production's not like too much. And I like big production festivals, but it fits the vibe of the size of the festival. So it feels intimate. I feel like people that play there feel comfortable playing some of their stuff that they might not play at a more mainstream festival. So you get like really authentic sets from people. Um, and they release tons of music from all sorts of acts. The diversity of the producers is good. Like it's just a cool label, I think, that has just done a lot for the bass music scene. So I'm always really excited for that.
Paul's sound and style has changed over the years, but the truth is the entire scene is changing. Paul tells us what he imagines to be the future of the scene and shouts out some of the up-and-coming artists that are making an impact.
That we're in this really interesting phase right now where there's like a changing of the guard almost. I think that there's legacy acts that, are either retiring or like winding down on the amount of shows that they're doing. And then there's this like new wave of artists that are happening or like getting their like bigger moments. You're seeing people like Of the Trees and like Daily Bread selling out Red Rocks, in like 10 minutes. And it's, their first or second time ever playing there. So there's these like changing of who's big and who's not big and whose longevity is changing and what's like hot or like, I mean, Daily Bread's been working at this for like a decade. Same with Of the Trees. It's just this really like interesting point in bass music. And hopefully, I'm involved in those conversations. So hopefully I'm among those people that are kind of like new kids on the block.
If you haven't heard any of the Ravenscoon sound, Paul describes what you can expect.
It depends on, how old they are. Because like my parents or like people like my aunts and uncles, I'm like electronic music and they're like techno. And I'm like, no, that's like a catch-all phrase for them. But I'd say like obviously experimental bass music, but I think it's a little bit more than that. Because it's emotional as well. There's some nostalgic factors to it as well. Maybe all of those things: experimental, nostalgic, melodic, emotional bass music.
Paul makes music to be experienced by the mind, body, heart, and soul. Here's what he hopes listeners take from his music.
I hope that it gives people joy and comfort and fun. The pretty three simple things. I put a lot of care and effort into it. And I want people to listen to it. And just like sometimes you're having a bad day, you can listen. Sometimes you just want to party. Like, and I've tried to make stuff that hits those two, polar opposites and just everything in between. From just like getting people to dance and laugh and have fun to something that you would listen to while you like look out the window of the car. I just want to like encapsulate all the different emotions for people.
Paul puts all his heart and soul into his music, and listeners can feel it. His live shows are full of energy, and you can always expect something a little different, no matter how many times you've seen him play. Be sure to follow Ravenscoon on the socials linked below, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming interviews.